What's up? All right, first episode. Here we go. Okay, so now that we've started, I feel like I should do like a little recap. So I met Eric 4 days ago. We connected through Andrew. He had me on his podcast, and he's a real estate investor here in Denver. So Eric's new to Denver, and he's trying to get out and talk to other investors in the city. So that's how we got connected, and then we spent Christmas Eve eating enchiladas.
Good Christmas Eve.
Oh my gosh, I had some of your pickles today. 10 out of
Yeah,
10.
yeah.
Oh,
Spicy for the
well,
audience.
are they not like pickled carrots?
Yeah, like spicy pickled carrots, like the ones you get at a taco shop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they were delicious. All right. So actually, this is something we haven't talked about. Your background. Like I know you're from San Diego, and you mentioned that you were an athlete and that you've traveled a lot. Like those are the big bullet points that I know about you, but I guess now's a good time for you to start wherever it makes sense.
yeah, and it's kind of crazy that we just met 4 days ago. It doesn't feel that way. I think we're super similar, just in kind of our backgrounds, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to build here in Denver. So it's been exciting to meet you and happy to chat. Yeah, my background, I would say my life has been, I've lived a crazy life, I would say, like in a good way. I've done a lot of stuff in my 38 years in the world, and I feel like I've had a few different chapters in my life. So if we're going to start from the beginning, I was an athlete, like a pretty elite level athlete. My family, that's our whole background is athletics. So my dad do you know what judo is?
Isn't that some sort of martial art?
Yeah, it's like wrestling, jujitsu. It's Olympic sport. So my dad is a coach. That's his profession.
Oh,
And so we grew up, like starting at 4 years old, all of us, my two older sisters, cousins, everyone, we're a judo family. Like that's what we're known for. Like the Lafons, they do judo. My oldest sister was an Olympian, so she went to Barcelona in '92 and then Beijing in 2008. My
oh,
other sister for the US, yeah.
okay.
And
Wow.
then my other sister went to the world championships. And so I grew up doing judo and soccer and was national champion like multiple times as a kid. So again, my focus was like purely athletics. I was from a young age traveling a lot, going to tournaments, fighting, playing soccer, training. That was like my whole life. If you ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say I want to be an Olympian in both judo and soccer. So like that was my whole life, and it makes sense. My whole family, that was like our background. And eventually I had to choose a sport, right? Like when you're younger, you can do both. If you want to get to the top, you got to choose one. And so I'm sure my dad's still a little bit bitter about this, but I ended up choosing soccer when I was a teenager, maybe like 13, 14. Realized I needed to focus on one. And I think probably a few reasons, like having your dad as a coach is like stressful, right? It's like all in the family and he's hard on you. I'm sure that didn't help my decision of like wanting to stay around. And then I just like, I loved soccer more. It was like more fun to me. I thought I was better, meaning like I had a higher ceiling of, judo. There's not like a professional league or anything. Like you go to the Olympics, but as an amateur. And so like my goal was to be a professional soccer player. And so I think, that's what made me choose one over the other. And then, yeah, I focused that next portion of like my teenage years to soccer and ended up playing in college. So I went to Sonoma State. Do you know where that is?
You said that was in California, right?
Yeah, it's like an hour north of San Francisco.
Okay.
It's wine country. So there's like Napa and then there's Sonoma.
Okay.
So I got a scholarship there. I think this kind of starts my risk taking. I went there without ever visiting. I was kind of all out of options in terms of colleges. I was supposed to go.
Where were
I
you?
was supposed to. I'm a small guy, so like as a small soccer player, like college is usually like big physical guys, especially like 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And so I think just like the type of player I was meant not as many coaches were like as interested. They tended to go for like, 6'2" guy that could just like run forever. And so I was like a small technical player, and so it was harder for me to find coaches that would like take a chance on me. And then I was committed to play at University of San Diego, and that fell through because the financial aid package that they said they would be able to get me was like half as much. And I don't know if you know that school, but it's like a 40 or 50 grand a year tuition. And I was like, I'm not going, I'm not going into like $100,000 of debt to come play soccer here. So
Yeah.
I actually took a year off and then just came across Sonoma through a few of my high school friends, and coach got me into the school. I'd never visited. He's like, do you want to come visit? Oh, you guys are taking a chance on me. I'll take a chance on you. And I just showed up with my stuff. And you'll notice a pattern as I tell my story of like, I guess I'm a pretty big risk taker. Like things that for me don't seem like a big risk, or I'm just like, yeah, I went along with it, and what's the worst that could happen? But everyone else around me is like, whoa, what do you mean you never went or
Yeah.
never did that? So again, I think, for me, those sort of things aren't that scary. Like
Uh,
in my mind, I could go, and if I didn't like it, I could always just come back in
Yeah.
3 months, 6 months, or whatever. So, for me, it's just like not a big risk.
Now that you mentioned that, it's funny that like even from a young age, I don't know if it's societal or if it's cultural or maybe like just things imposed by your family, but the norm is to think that once you decide something, you can't undo it. Like there's so many kids who are like, well, I already started college, at this school and I hate it here, but like I already, I'm already here. And I know I've been a victim of, some circumstances like that too. So good for you.
Yeah, it's typical, right? And I have plenty of friends or family members that are like, they follow that kind of norm. Like they've never left their home city, or they've just been at the same job for like 20 years, and not knocking that at all. Like if that's what works for them, that's great. But I'm totally the opposite of like, there's so many things that I'm interested in or that I want to pursue. And I have, I have like a few kind of life mottos, I guess, if you will.
What's what?
And like the one I say the most to myself, and that really resonates with me, is be fearless in pursuit of what sets your soul on fire. And so like, I feel like that's how I live my life, is like, there's something that like enters my brain of like, I'm interested in doing that. More often than not, I'm going to end up doing that. Like if it's on my mind and I really am passionate about trying to pursue something.
So that's
Uh,
fearless in pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Strong word.
So again, I think like as you hear more of this, it just seems to be a trend of just doing what most people would think is risky. And for me, it's just kind of like built into the way I'm wired.
Okay. All right. So you go to this brand new school that you've never seen before. You're taking a chance on them.
Yeah, and it ends up working out great. Like I'm so happy with the decision I made to go there. It's very formative in a number of ways. I got really lucky with an amazing coach and coaching staff who taught me a lot, like not just about soccer, but just growing up and becoming a man, and like training habits and all that sort of stuff.
Would you say
And
this was one of the most transformational parts of your life? Or like, was there something in your upbringing that was also like kind of just, it defined you as a certain person?
I think both. So, it's funny because like when I have job interviews or anything like that, and they're like, tell me about yourself, I always mention my background as an athlete, because I think there's a lot of life skills that I got out of it. And I'm super grateful for the environment I was raised in. We were raised like super tough. Our dad was like really hard on us, which as a kid, it's not always easy, but as an adult, I realized like a lot of the skills that I learned through judo, especially like discipline and training and staying regimented and pushing through hard things. That's all stuff that like I take with me on a daily basis. And then, yeah, in college, I think again, just kind of a further evolution of that. Of you go from being like a 17, 18-year-old kid to all of a sudden you're living on your own, and you're becoming an adult and a man. And so I had great coaches that really pushed me in the right ways with my studies, with like focusing, with training, like eating habits, all that good stuff. Because, like I said, I had ambitions to become a professional player. And so with that comes a lot of sacrifices, which like most people don't realize being a college athlete has its perks, but it's like a lot of sacrifice. Like you miss out on the parties and all that stuff. I would be on like a 10-hour bus ride or like a flight to San Diego, like studying for the midterm at like, 11 p.m. on a dark bus, like things like that you don't realize. And again, I think that's really helped shape like who I've become today as an adult. And then just like from a pure soccer perspective, it was just like the right environment for me with the coaches that like trusted me, valued my skill set. They didn't try to turn me into something I wasn't. Other coaches would be like, we want a big guy and like we want you to be like super physical, and that's not who I am. And so I think I just lucked out in finding the right environment that nurtured me and helped, push me to the next level.
What did you major in?
Business. And I'll be the first to admit I did not care for school. Like even in high school, I was always a kid that was, get good grades or get A's on the test, but I never did homework or like I wouldn't do the assignments. I didn't care for it. I was so focused on sports. I wish I cared a little bit more about school looking back at it. But yeah, in college, I did not the bare minimum, but I did enough to get, B's and C's. But it was not my focus. So yeah, business marketing. But honestly, I did that because I had no idea what I wanted to major in. I just chose that. I guess it's helped me a little bit. But yeah, I think everything I learned in my professional career, yeah, I didn't learn any of it in college.
Okay, but would you say like there's something to be said about going to college?
I'm not an anti-college person. I think it just really depends on the person. I
Mhm.
see a world where college is going to start becoming less and less necessary, but I think it's good for a lot of people. I don't regret going to college.
Yeah.
It I think people just focus too much on its like purely the books and kind of educational part, but I think it was good for me in being on my own in a, I guess, somewhat more sheltered environment, right? It's not like
Mhm.
the big world, but it's kind of
Yeah.
like a stepping stone,
The medium world.
a medium world. Yeah, where like I would say I'm pretty independent as a kid, just the way I was raised, but yeah, you're having to figure out your financial situation, whether that's like financial aid or your scholarships or working a job. Like some people, that's the first time they're cooking for themselves on their own or doing their own laundry, which is scary. You could be like 18 and you've never done your laundry. So yeah, I don't regret it. Like I think it was great for me. I do think it's still valuable for some people. It just depends on your circumstances. I don't think it's valuable for most people to go into like crazy debt for it unless you're trying to, you know, study something specialized, like, or you want to go into law or medicine or anything like that. So yeah, it depends. Like my nieces, none of them went to college. I think that's the right move for them. Whereas some other people, I'd probably be like, yeah, you should go to college, go to the medium world. Maybe you need to learn a few little things before you're a big boy or big girl.
Okay. So was college the end of your athletic career, or did you go on to play sports after that?
I played 4 years at Sonoma. First 2 years was just, you know, I was okay, but not playing to my potential. Last 2 years, it really all clicked and I started flourishing. I was an All-American my senior year. I broke the all-time assist record for our university. So like really blossomed in my last 2 years. Some people would say it felt out of nowhere, but I think it's just like years of working where it finally paid off.
Yeah.
And then after my senior season was like seeing if I could try to make it to the MLS, which is the top league here in the US. Um, at that time, I just was realistic of like, I know I'm good enough to make a team, but also same thing as like when I was going into college. I just knew with my style, it would be hard to see like a team taking a chance on me. So like I trained with a few MLS teams and I just realized like it wasn't in the cards for me. And so I decided to take a risk and I moved to Germany. So my college coaches were well connected in the Netherlands and in Germany. And I don't know how much you know about soccer, but in Europe, there's a lot of like lower divisions.
Okay.
So even if you're not in the top division, there's like lower, like here in baseball, there's lower leagues and you kind of work your way up.
Mhm.
That's how it works in Europe. And like you're still professional and you can still make enough money to live. And so I decided like, let's go ahead and give it a shot. So
This is
I
another one
moved.
of those, I didn't see anything before I
Yeah,
looked.
yeah. Yeah. No,
Like this.
this one's crazier though, because I did not have a contract lined up. I had an agent who admittedly was like not very good at all. So he didn't do a ton for me, but he had like one or two teams that I would go train with. And I had a buddy that was playing out there. So like I had a couch to crash on and get like situated. And I moved there with 2 suitcases and a one-way flight with no contract lined up, no nothing. I had maybe one team that said, you could come train with us if you want, but that's, not a big commitment on their end.
They weren't desperate for you, but you were like,
Nah, they're
I'll
like,
do it.
who? From where? And especially, back then the US, like, I mean, we've gotten better in soccer, but back then it's like an American, like, yeah, yeah, who the hell is this guy coming in? So, yeah, and again, for me, like, didn't feel like a risk. It just felt like the natural progression of like, this is what I want. I want to pursue this. And if this is what it takes, I'm going to go ahead and see what happens.
I mean, if not Germany, then what?
What was my backup?
Yeah.
I could have played in the US in like the lower divisions.
Okay. So it
But
was still soccer. Soccer
yeah, yeah.
was the main thing and the backup thing. It was just a different country.
Yeah, it's plan A, plan B, and plan C. Yeah, I did like in college, I never did any internships. I never thought about all my friends were doing internships in San Francisco because it was pretty close by.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh, where are you going to try to work? Are you going to intern?" And I was like, what are you talking about, man? I'm going to play soccer." So it was the furthest thing from my mind. A traditional career, like never entered my mind for a single second, which ultimately ended up making my life difficult post soccer. But for the time being, like, yeah, it was pretty singularly focused on trying to carve out a soccer career.
Okay, so you get to Germany. You're sleeping on your friend's couch. So okay, this move to Germany, you're saying that you'd play in the minor leagues and make enough to live, but there was no guarantee that they were going to hire you.
Yeah, I had nothing lined up. So you're just at that point you're just hoping something works out. You go and train, hopefully you do well enough where they invite you back, and then hopefully you impress enough where they offer you a contract. So it's like there's a number of steps. It's not like you go there and you're like, oh, this is going to be pretty easy to find a team. There's a lot of steps that go into that to even try to get any sort of initial contract for any sort of team.
How old are you at this point?
I want to say it was like 22 or 23.
Okay. And you have been focusing on being a college athlete and, that scholarship. So you're not even like making money on the side or anything.
Yeah, again, I think, I mean, that was like my childhood dream, right? Like to be a professional player. So for me, it was like a no-brainer. And again, I think my mindset is always like, I could do this. And if I fail, then, I'm back to square one. I'm like in the same boat I was in when I started. So 23 in soccer is like kind of old, which sounds crazy.
Okay.
Like it's old in that if you haven't made it to a certain level by then, it's hard to make it. It happens, but it's more rare. Like in Europe, if you're 23, they're like, oh, you're almost past it if you haven't made it by then.
Wild. Okay.
Yeah, so I stayed with my buddy Nathan, trained with some teams there. Had planned to like go to other parts of the country and try to line something up, and just the way it worked out, I ended up training with his club. And the way it kind of works is like you can go train once, there's no harm for them, but you have to show like that you belong. If you suck, it's pretty cutthroat. Like if you're not good enough, they'll just be like, don't come back. Luckily, they invited me back, and after like a week, maybe 2 weeks, it started feeling like they might be interested in seeing about offering me a contract. So it didn't work out the way I thought. I thought it was going to go off to other parts of Germany and ended up staying where my friend was. Ended up playing on the same team my friend was on. So that was super cool to play on the same club team as a childhood friend. And yeah, they offered me a contract. You're not making a ton of money. Let's just say that. Like it's enough to live, but it's a very bare bones contract. And then it's also very incentivized by performance. So it's like you could get a base pay, but then you get X amount if you start a game, or if your team wins a game, you get like a bonus. So your actual base is fairly low. Like, I was struggling. Like I could afford rent and cheap meals, but it was not like you're making a lot of money at all.
Man, man, the life of an athlete. That sounds like it's like you're not getting paid a lot until you get paid like a fuck ton. Like I feel like there's no in between. With
Yeah. People look at, the people in the Premier League and all the top leagues in the world and they make millions, but most of the professional players are in the lower leagues making, a lot of times they even have to work second jobs because it's not enough to really live. I mean, I was young and single, but like if you had family, for example, or anything like that, like yeah, it's not enough. It was enough for me to take the odd trip to like Barcelona on a €20 Ryanair flight
Mhm.
and stay in like a €5 hostel with like 40 people and party for a weekend. But yeah, you're pretty broke, honestly.
Okay. Wow. So that contract ended up coming up at the 2 year mark. That's whenever it was over.
Yeah, so I played out there for 2 seasons. So I was there for 2 years, and it's really hard. Like I don't regret it, and I have some incredible life stories and memories from that time of my life. And there's times where it's pretty surreal to think back, like that I lived in Germany for 2 years. It's kind of strange. Like I would have never imagined that.
How was it?
Um,
Wise and cultural. Did you like learn the language at all while you were there?
language is hard. Like German is not the easiest to pronounce. I also just learned on my own. I used to watch a lot of TV that had subtitles.
Mhm.
So How I Met Your Mother was like so popular in Germany. I think I'd watch it must have been in English with German subtitles. I can't remember which one. But
Mhm.
that helped me learn just from like context. I could kind of learn some words. My German definitely was not good, but it was enough where I could get by with basic conversations.
Okay. So English,
Um,
not enough to get by.
what was that?
English.
Where I was, you could get by. I mean, Germans speak really good English.
Okay.
Um, it just depends. I mean, most of my teammates were young, and so a lot of them spoke English, but they kind of refused to. They didn't want to.
Mm.
My coach spoke English, so he would speak to me in German, but if it was clear I didn't understand, he could switch to English. So it was a lot of kind of back and forth, some German, some English. Conversationally, like I could not have a deep conversation. I could have a very basic, like I dated a German girl for a little, and her English was very bad, and my German was very bad. And we would try German and be like, I don't know what to say. So we try English. She's like, I don't understand. She studied in Spain for like 6 months, so she spoke some Spanish. So
Uh-huh.
sometimes we try Spanish too. So sometimes I'm trying like three different languages just to have a conversation with this chick. So
Okay.
yeah, like language was okay. I would say more than anything, it's just, I mean, you're living in another country by yourself. You're like far across the world from all your friends, all your family, and that's tough. The weather's not great. Like the winters suck. It's gray. It snows. It rains. That's hard from someone coming from San Diego his whole life at that point. And then it's just very cutthroat, like the business, because now you're getting paid. And even though it's not a lot, like everyone has that ambition to make it to the top. And so while you're on the same team, it doesn't always feel that way because there's these like personal incentives that if you start, you get more money, or if you score, or if you win, or whatever. And so it felt less of like the team environment that I was used to in college, where we were super, super tight and like a brotherhood. And it felt way more individualistic, way more raw, way more cutthroat of, you have to perform. If you don't, like your contract's on the line, your money's on the line, your livelihood's on the line. And so that's challenging because it's like it's way less fun and now it's like very serious. And so all those things together, it's super hard. My first 6 months were really challenging. I wasn't playing a lot, even though I should have been. There's politics involved. There's as an American, you have to be that much better than like a local kid to play. So yeah, I wasn't playing a lot. I wasn't making a lot of money. I didn't know anybody. And so yeah, it was super, super challenging those first 6 months in particular.
Man. Okay. And then after that, that's whenever you like started getting acclimated to it and just kept playing, I guess.
Yeah, things get better. And again, I think I'm grateful for my childhood of pushing through tough things because that's definitely a really challenging thing as a young man who has these ambitions and you're just getting like nowhere and you don't have a big support system around you. And I think I just toughed through it and I pushed through and kept training and kept trying and eventually, yeah, I got to a point where I was playing more and becoming like more of an important part of the team and doing well. So yeah, I ended up staying two years and it was a great 2 years, but when I was deciding towards the end of my time there, like, do I want to stay? Do I want to maybe try another team or another city? I just, I think I got burned out where, 20 years of my life was like solely dedicated to sports. Like, that's all I knew.
Mhm.
And it was honestly like what defined me as a person, which is cool, but also it's kind of a weird feeling of like, this is all I have. And um, at that point, I'm, like 25 and I said earlier, like 23 years old. So like 25, if you haven't made it, and I was honest with myself, like I thought I had the potential to play at a higher level, but I was also realistic of, probably wasn't realistic. I would make it to like the first, the second division and I could play and I could get paid, but I'd be kind of on the broke side and, you know, it'd be more of just to have a European adventure, but I looked and I evaluated and I made the hard decision. I was like, I think it's time for you to move on. Like,
Move on from like sports as a career.
yeah, it's because I think once you start having those doubts, like to be an athlete, you need to be so clear-minded and so dedicated to training and all the sacrifices. And I could tell I had a lot of doubts and reservations and maybe burned out. And I think once you're not 100% in like that, it's probably the right time to call it quits. And my buddy that I had stayed with, he stayed another maybe 2 years, 2 or 3 years.
Mhm.
I had friends that kind of chased the dream until they were like, maybe 30, where they weren't making much money. They were like going from city to city, sleeping on a couch. And I admire those people for, trying to chase it as long as they could. For me, I was just like, I gave it a solid go. I had a great 2 years. Like I played at a solid level. I have great memories, but I think this is where this chapter ends.
Okay. So I want to like sports aside, I kind of want to step into 25-year-old Eric. Like, where was your mind at like in life? I don't know if that's a complete enough question for you to answer if you need me to like get more specific.
I think at the end of my time there was probably when I started realizing that sports had dominated my life. And while I wouldn't change that for anything, I think I was ready for something new and to figure out like what does the rest of my life look like because I had never really thought about that, right? Like I was so focused on just sport. And I think that's a big part of why I decided to stop playing and move back to the US was like, all right, man, you're 25, 26, like you've never really, I mean, I've had odds and end jobs, but like I wasn't focused on a career. I wasn't focused even on like a family or anything. And so, yeah, I just started thinking about what's next. And I had no freaking clue. Like I
Was
moved back
that
to the US and I had no idea what I was going to do.
was that scary at all? Like realizing that, dang, I'm 25 and I don't know. who I am aside from an athlete? Or was that like, okay, I've been an athlete long enough, like now it's time to discover what else I am? Like which of those two directions were you at mentally?
It's definitely scary. I mean, I think you hear, not to compare myself with like pro sports players that played like in the NBA for years, but I think it's common you hear people, athletes, when they stop playing, it's like they have a really hard time because that's like their whole persona, their whole life. That's all they've ever known. And so, yeah, it was definitely scary at that age. I've never wanted anything else. I mean, I was a bright guy. I was smart. I got my degree, right? So I wasn't worried in that, like, I'm not capable, but I didn't have anything I was like passionate about. Like, I wasn't sitting here like, oh, I would love to go into, I don't know, medicine or this. Like, as a career, I had no clue what I was interested in or what I would want to pursue. And then, yeah, just like kind of your whole personality being an athlete is also scary, right? Like, once that's taken away, who am I now? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah. So how did you come about that discovery process? I mean, like how long did it take you to like be like, okay, I am also A, B, C, and D, that like to I guess to reshape your identity.
Yeah, I mean, it took time. And I would say, I mean, that was, how long ago was that? That was almost 10 years ago now that I moved back and kind of that chapter of my life ended. I would say it's not even until the most recent few years where I fully feel like I'm very aligned with like what I want to do, who I'm looking to become, all that. I would say it took a few years to at least start moving on that path. So when I moved back to the US, had to find a job and I had no clue what it like. I mean, I got a degree in business marketing, but that was mostly because it was just easy to get that degree. I had no idea what I was looking for. So I'm sure I interviewed for like the most random jobs. Like I interviewed for like customer service jobs and I was just like, what can I do to get my foot in the door? I have no clue what I want to do.
So like
And
connecting with family while you got your
yeah, I moved. Oh my God, it's so long ago. I haven't even thought about it. So I moved in with an old soccer teammate who was like 5 years older than me, and he had a family, but they had a spare room, and they let me crash for like a month or two. Not too long, but like a month or two, as I was looking for a job in San Diego,
okay.
and I ended up with a really random, kind of a weird job. It was like at a home office. So I go to interview and it's literally just a normal house. I was like, oh, I must be lost. And I knock on the door and there's like a home office. There's maybe 4 or 5 people. And it was a travel agency and like event management. So what they did was they managed like VIP and corporate travel for like a lot of investment bankers or people with a lot of money that they just needed someone to take care of their logistics. And then they somehow got some contracts with some event management stuff. So I actually traveled a good amount to some events and I did like hands-on event coordinating sort of stuff. So that was like my first, even if you want to call it big boy job.
Okay. How did that feel? Like, was it a 9 to 5? Was it a 40-hour week? Like,
It's an office job, 100%. Like, I mean, I traveled a few times, but I
it
was in
wasn't
this
like
home
every
office.
week or anything.
No. It wasn't a ton. It was a straight up office, 9 to 5, all the typical stuff.
Did you hate
Uh,
that?
I didn't hate it. I'm sure I didn't love it at the time, but I didn't hate it. And if anything, it was probably nice to have just something new. I think I was pretty indifferent. Like I knew this isn't what I want to do, but it's at least something. And
Yeah.
what's funny is like, I mean, it's the first time I worked at In-N-Out when I was like 17. That was the first like kind of real job. I did like odds and ends, but so this was kind of the first real job where I had a salary. I think I was making like 30 grand or something like crazy low. And I was excited because it was the most money I'd ever made in my life, and I didn't know
Oh
any
my
better.
gosh. You hear that? And I'm like, that's wild because the amount of work that athletes have to like put in and day out and then not get paid for it. Like, no, can't relate. You have
But
to be
yeah, it was yeah, 30 something grand. I lived with some roommates, and I was making enough to like live somewhat comfortably. I wasn't struggling. I was still saving up to go on trips, and I think this is a time where I guess one part I missed out is when I lived in Europe, I started traveling a lot. So I grew up traveling for sports, but that's totally different. You don't have time to enjoy anything. You're like just going, you fly in, you fly out. But I took a number of trips when I lived in Europe. I think I went to like 8 or 9 countries. So anytime I'd have like a few days off, I'd fly for like a 4-day weekend or whatever. And so I think that's when I really started to get in the travel bug. So going to a lot of different countries and realizing how much I love that and seeing new cultures, new foods, and all that sort of stuff. Europe's great because you can just go, you take a 1 hour flight and you're in another country. You could drive like 3 hours and you're in another country.
Mhm.
And so I think that exposure really started getting me excited about travel. And that's probably why I took that travel job, actually, now that I think of
Okay.
it. I think I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I love traveling in Europe. Like maybe this could be a career, like somehow in travel. It wasn't, by the way, like a career in travel is kind of not as fun as it sounds. And there's no money in it, is the other thing.
Oh, fun. But it was the most money you'd ever seen up until that point. So, like, it was a good change of pace anyway.
Yeah. And then again, I think it started exposing me more to travel, and I started realizing how much I love that. So I started traveling more. This is the time when I was working this job was the time I took my first like kind of scary trips. I went to Peru for the first time by myself. And I don't know, Europe's like pretty easy travel wise because it's Western culture. Like most people speak English. It's very similar. So I've obviously been to Mexico. My mom is from Mexico, but this was the first solo trip where it's like felt like, whoa, this is like you're going to South America for the first time. This is kind of a whole new world, and I think that trip really changed my trajectory in life, and I started realizing how much I love travel and how much that just like fuels me. Like I get so excited on these trips, and yeah, ever since then, I've gone like on a massive travel bender. Like I've been to 30 countries now. So I think that
Third.
that job, like getting back from Europe, that job, and then that first Peru trip, like really opened my eyes of outside of my career, like what are some of my passions and interests, and like travel was the biggest one by far.
How long were you in Peru?
I think I was there 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. And what made that experience so eye-opening? Like, what specifically?
Yeah, well, I went to Machu Picchu, which I don't know if you've been there yet, but there's a lot of places in the world where they say like, oh, you could feel the energy and or whatever. And I usually am like, they're full of shit. Like that can't be. And that was one of the few times in my life where like it lived up to the hype. Like when you get there, it just takes your breath away. And to think that this whole city in the middle of these massive mountains and jungles hundreds or thousands of years ago was built. I don't know, it's just super incredible to see what other cultures have been able to achieve, and then just exposed to very different ways of life in Peru and meeting different people and exposed to different foods and ideas. Just all that was like very appealing to me, and I got like super hooked very quickly.
Okay. And so was it like the majority of your time there, like Machu Picchu oriented, or did you like bounce around within Peru?
It was very Machu Picchu oriented. Like I went to Cusco, and then I did a 5-day trek to Machu Picchu, but there was like a lot of adventures in between. Like one day was hiking, one day was like mountain biking, One day was zip lining, and that's my travel style. So that's the other thing about me is I don't know. A lot of my friends want to go travel and they want to just lay on a beach for like 5 days and drink a pina colada, and like that's their vision of like a great trip.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm like the opposite. Like I want to go explore. I want to like I'm like the annoying friend that's like we're gonna go out, like climb that mountain at 6 a.m. Right?
Mhm.
So I'm very adventurous. My trips are usually not cities. They're usually like in the mountains or the jungle. Like I've been to the Amazon, I've like climbed some big mountains and volcanoes. So I'm very much more on the adventurous side of travel, which I'm sure scares the shit out of my mom. But that's the stuff I love. Like I don't necessarily love going to big cities and like trying the restaurants. Like I could do that for a little bit, but more often I'm doing like these crazy out in nature and pretty adventurous sort of trips.
I mean, it sounds like that you're in the right place, like Denver, that you'll meet a lot of people who are right there with you, buddy. Okay, so that's where you got the travel bug, and like then you just started chasing travel like across the board.
Yeah, I made it my goal to go to, and it's still kind of my hat level thing is I want to try to go to a new country, at least one new country every year.
Okay, have you gone to
Uh,
which country did you go to this year?
so this year was crazy, which we'll touch on in the future. I went to 4 different countries this year. So I went to Mexico, Argentina, Peru, and oh, five, Brazil and Uruguay.
How was Uruguay?
I was only there for 4 days and it was winter, so I need to give it another shot. Like it wasn't the best
Okay, don't go to
circumstances.
Uruguay in the winter if you like warm climates.
Yeah, because they're on. It's not the. I guess they're coastal and a river, and it's all about like summertime, like enjoying the water and all that. And so when it was, like 38 degrees, it's not as fun. So I wouldn't say I didn't like it, but I want to go back in nice weather and see what's up.
Yeah. Okay, so we still have a gap. So you got your job at the travel agency, you got the travel bug, but now you're not doing anything like that, and you're interested in real estate investment. So like, how did that transition happen?
Yeah, I realized travel industry was not for me. That was not, that was my first job. So I'm still figuring out. I actually did one other travel job. I was a travel agent for traveling nurses and doctors. So like they get recruited to go on like a 2 month assignment. I would come in and handle all the logistics.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in my skill set because of all my travels. I
Mm-hmm.
do that for myself.
Yeah.
Super boring job. I thought, oh, maybe it's travel adjacent. Maybe this is a path. And I quickly realized, like, no, this is not what you want to be doing. And then, so this is probably I probably worked for 3, maybe 4 years once I moved back to the US, 3 years probably. And I decided to quit. So I quit my job and I ended up traveling in Southeast Asia for 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So didn't like the job, realized travel was not my future, like career wise.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point I'm, pushing 30, probably getting closer, late 20s. And I just thought to myself, like, you clearly want to go travel for a long time. You're not married, you don't have kids. Like, if you don't do it now, you might not ever be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to have that regret. And so, yeah, quit my job, a job I wasn't super passionate about. Lined up with like my lease coming up in San Diego. And so I just went backpacking for 3 months
Mm-hmm.
and went to like 7 or 8 countries in Southeast Asia.
Okay. Did that change your mindset at all as much as Peru did? Or was it just like confirmation of like, yeah, I like this. I want to keep doing this.
Yeah, confirmation,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Asia is a whole different beast, right? I mentioned Peru was like such a deviation to what I was used to. Like Asia is that like times
On
10.
steroids.
Yeah, like I flew into Hong Kong and Hong Kong is like New York City on steroids. It's just like so many people, it's packed, it's busy, it's loud. There's like, I can still picture like this when I hopped off the bus and like the sounds and smells and everything. It was just like chaos. And but like in the best of ways, it's like it's just so addicting. And yeah, Asia was such a unique trip because it's so different than, all the Western countries I'd ever been to. And to your question, definitely confirmation of like I want to explore even more parts of the world, like very different than what I'm used to, meeting very different walks of life, different types of food, and the food there is like incredible. So, really, like, super confirmed that this is not going to change. Like, this is a big part of my life, and what I want to do moving forward is just explore, travel the world more.
Okay. So then did you come back from that Asian trip still like back to California, or did you go somewhere else?
Yeah, this was another turning point of like, shit, what's next? Uh, Realized like travel wasn't it, but travel industry probably wasn't my future. I got back to San Diego and I was looking for jobs and was still pretty lost in terms of career, like what I wanted to do. And I was interviewing for so much random stuff. At least this time I had, more experience. I had a proper job for a number of years. And I ended up, I don't know how I got to this, but I ended up interviewing for a travel company, but it was a software company. And so what they did was, like when you're trying to book a tour online, it says book now, and then you click that and it's like their schedule, their price, and all that. So that software is like what we did. All that software is like powered by us.
Okay.
For tour operators, it was a lot of like small mom and pop tour companies. And so in my mind, I was like, oh, this is kind of the best of both worlds. It's software, but it's like you work with a lot of travel people and travel companies.
Had you already had any exposure to software at this point?
No. But I went to school in the Bay Area, so a lot of my friends ended up getting into software, like sales or whatever. So it seemed like a good career path. I had a number of people I knew in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, it felt like an easier land because it was still somewhat travel related. But it was more on the software side. The only thing was, so this was a San Francisco based company. They were opening a new office in Salt Lake City.
Mm-hmm.
And so the job would have been, I would have to move to Salt Lake City.
Okay. And you didn't want to do that.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you did? Right. And you probably had never been before. And
Mhm.
the place was not there.
There you're starting to understand me. So, I mean, I interviewed with the CEO, they're a small company, and she's like, well, it's in Salt Lake City, right? Like, have you ever been? Are you okay? I was like, I've never been. I've never known anyone that's
Oh,
even been. I don't know anything about it. But yeah, screw it. Like, I mean, it's a interesting opportunity. It gets my foot in the door in software. The role was for customer support, so I was like a support rep on the phone lines and in chat, which didn't sound overly exciting, but again, it was like a starting point of, hey, and this is how I can get my foot in the door
yeah.
in software. And yeah, again, I said to you in the early stages, you'll see some trends here. I packed up my shit and I drove up and didn't know anyone, didn't I wasn't like, let me take a quick trip, see if I like it there. I was just like, I guess I'm driving out to Salt Lake City in a few days.
I like that. I like that. You don't need that. I mean, I at least I usually don't come across like too many risk takers, and I'm a risk taker. So it's exciting to like meet people who are also like, yeah, whatever, like I'll go.
It's funny to hear all the reactions I would get. They're like, what do you mean Salt Lake? Like, have you ever been? Like, do you know anyone? I'm like, no, no.
Yeah.
But I
I mean,
mean,
it's
it's a
enough.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this sounds like a cool opportunity and I'm not doing shit. Like, I don't know what else to do. So let's see where this takes me.
Okay. So that's I guess probably like maybe the last chapter in your story until now before real estate is like that's how you got into software, and have you just stayed in software the whole time?
Yeah, I like that you use chapters because I do view my life in a number of different chapters,
Mhm.
and I actually feel like I just ended that kind of missing piece that you just mentioned by moving to Denver recently. But yeah, I would say those next maybe 6 years or so. So I lived in Salt Lake for a year. Have you ever been?
No, but
Okay.
I want to go because they have really good dancers in Salt Lake.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
we had
didn't know
like
that.
some Salt Lake City dancers come by for one of our like congresses, and man, the level was, I mean, at least I was impressed by it. And the one of the guys that I danced with, he was like, "Oh yeah, we're like base level dancers," and I was like, "I need to go to Salt Lake City. I gotta go dance."
Yeah, Salt Lake it's a beautiful city. So the mountains are stunning. I mean, like Denver is mountain adjacent. Salt Lake's like you can be in the slopes from downtown in like 25 minutes. So it's like right in the mountains at the foot, and it's gorgeous. It's like an outdoor heaven, hiking and snowboarding, skiing, all that sort of stuff. It just wasn't for me. It was super hard to meet people. I didn't have a lot of friends in the year that I was there. Tried a lot of different things, and I don't know, you can just kind of feel the vibe of the city, and it just
Mhm.
didn't feel like my place.
Yeah.
I wasn't miserable. I didn't like hate it. It was gorgeous, but I knew I couldn't see myself being there that
Long.
long. And because I took a customer support role, like I was not making a lot of money. And I almost didn't take the job because I was like, wow, this is very little money.
Mhm.
But I did it with the intention of this is your foot into the door of software. And
Mhm.
from there, you can try to work your way up. So I
Yeah.
was pretty intentional with that. And I knew like this is very crappy pay, but hopefully it's only for like a year. So at the year mark, I decided like, okay, I want to leave Salt Lake City. I tried to see if I could transfer to San Francisco to in the same company, but
Okay.
that office, they offered me hardly anything more. And I'm sure you know San Francisco is insanely expensive.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can't even afford to live off what you just offered me. So I moved back to San Diego.
So you had to do that
And
job too, or did it just become remote?
I quit that job because their only other option, remote back then wasn't really a thing. Like
What
no
year
one
was this
worked.
now?
Maybe like 6 years
16
ago.
years ago? Oh, okay.
Yeah, 17, maybe something like that.
Okay. Okay. So, um, you were a customer support specialist, right?
Yeah.
And did you have like to work with the software at all, or was it just like more customer relations?
Yeah, you had to know the software well. So I mean, when
Okay.
they called in or chatted, it was because they were having an issue with the software.
Okay.
So
So that
it
definitely like
was,
helped you get good experience on your resume.
yeah. So it, it's a bit of an annoying job, right? Like you're usually dealing with frustrated, angry people. I'm so glad that I started my software career in that because you're just exposed to so much. I worked with like every parts of the business. I worked with the CEO on a few things. And then I think that skill set of, and this will translate to my real estate, but just being customer oriented is such a great life skill. I would say not even just a career skill, but I was talking to my sister recently and it's a classic, like your family never fully understands what you do for work. They're like, oh, he does computers or whatever. And so she was digging more into like, what do you actually do? And so I kind of explained what I currently do. And it's a lot of relationships, it's a lot of solving problems, it's a lot of thinking on the fly. And it's a great skill to have because, for example, I'll be traveling and shit goes wrong all the time when you're traveling. And some of my friends like can't handle it. They freak out or they don't know handle these kind of pressure situations or when things don't go right. And it's just so ingrained in me now because of all the stuff I've had to deal with working
Mhm.
in like customer support type of role.
Yeah.
That now I just feel like any situation that arises, I'm like, oh, I've dealt with 20 times worse. This is nothing. And, you understand how people think, like the psychology of people and what makes them tick. And they might be yelling at you, but I try to understand, empathize with them, talk them off the ledge, solve their problems. So it was a great,
On occasion, pushing them off.
yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm a patient man, but it doesn't mean I don't get super annoyed with some of the situations or people that you deal with. But yeah, that was a good first job in software. And during that time, the role I do now is called customer success manager. So it's a bit similar, but really what it is it's a close to what an account manager does, but you're basically in charge of the relationship. So let's say you use our software, you spend, $60,000 a year. My job is like to work with you as a leader and understand your business goals, like any pain points, and really help tailor like how you guys use our software in the right way
Mm-hmm.
to achieve whatever goals like you're paying all this money for. So it's a lot of like discovery questions, really like deeply understanding what your intentions are, and then proving like how we're being successful. And if we're not, like, what are the steps we need to take to get you there?
Mm-hmm.
So I realized, because at that point I'm still travel and software. And then at that point I was like, okay, software is like what I'm good at,
Mm-hmm.
where the money's at. Like it all just was pointing towards like you should be in software, but
Yeah.
obviously customer support, like it's a good starting point, but this is not where you want to be. You're hardly making any money. And so I started transitioning to this customer success role that I mentioned. And I've been doing this now for like 7 years. So I've learned a ton. I've worked with large Fortune 100 companies, Microsoft, Nintendo, like a bunch of giant companies. And that's really, I've carved out my career in software. I've realized that like where my interests are, where kind of my skill set, like it all aligns where like it's a really good fit for me,
Yeah. And
career wise.
you started this late 20s or early 30s.
Yeah, I'm definitely like a late bloomer, obviously
Yeah.
because of soccer.
Yeah.
And then, I took a number of years not really knowing what I wanted to pursue. So I would say it wasn't until even my early 30s, maybe 30, 31, where I was like, okay, this, it started clicking. Like, okay, this is you're good at this. There's money in this. There's opportunities. Like, this is what you should be doing.
Yeah. See, that's inspiring because, like, you don't know my whole story, but throughout my 20s, I constantly felt behind and like having to fight off that demon. Like, finally, I was able to come to terms with this is my timeline and my path, and I'm having to go at the pace that is just, right for my life, etc. But in the past, I think like month or two, that's been creeping up again. This feeling behind, and it's like you're not. You're just you're on your time, right? And I think that's really good for a lot of people to hear that you can reinvent yourself or even find your right path at any age. I don't know if that's something you ever struggled with. So probably
Yeah.
not had a purpose. But like I don't know. I always felt that was one of my biggest struggles in my 20s, like constantly feeling behind because my peers are further along than I was for reasons. But yeah, it was like I should be there, but I'm not.
Yeah. That's it's a totally natural feeling. And I 100% had similar feelings. In fact, I'd even say part of why I probably moved back from Germany when I did was because I did feel like I was already so far behind. And if I like stayed playing out there a few more years, I'd move back and I'd be like, 30 or late 20s and never worked and didn't know what I wanted to do with my career. So I think that's natural. And I'm sure I fought those feelings for quite a while. What I've realized in my kind of maturation as a person is, to your point, like there are no timelines. Like this is all self-imposed. Like we kind of, society tells us one thing of like you should have this by this age, or you should have kids or be married by that age. And I think it's easy to fall into that mindset, and I did, for the longest time. I think the biggest change in my life is just understanding that I'm on my own unique path. I don't regret any of my decisions because, I know plenty of people that got a job at 22 and worked at the same place for 15 years. And when they look at my life, they're like, oh my God, you've like lived such a full life with all these crazy experiences that when you tell your grandkids, like you have all these amazing stories.
Mhm.
So I think that's my biggest change is that mindset of like, there's no timeline. There's no one thing that we should have to do. I'm 38 now, and if I decide in my mid 40s that there's some other path I want to pursue, like
Another chapter.
I'm totally down for that. Like I'm trying not to label anything or have any ideas of like what my life should or shouldn't look like. I'm just a firm believer in I have these random ideas that take over me that I'm obviously passionate about, and I try to pursue those as often as possible. And yeah, that's the biggest change of how I've tried to live my life. And I think a lot of the decisions over like the last 5 years are just trying to align with that even more so.
Hmm. Um, cool. Okay, so you found success and you're good at this. Like, well, conventional success. You're in a career, you're growing, you're good at it, you stuck to it. That's like the path. And then you have a light bulb moment and you're like, I'm gonna try real estate now.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been doing this role now for 6, 7 years. When I was younger, and I think a lot of people are like this, is I was trying to find through work, like I wanted to find a career that, I don't know, gave me purpose and I felt very passionate about. And my mindset has shifted on that a lot over the last like 3, 4 years, where for me now, I view software as it's more of a means to an end, right? It's a good career. I'm happy in my day to day. Like I don't dislike it. I help a lot of people, but it's not where I get my fulfillment in life from. I'm not doing this because I'm passionate about helping people with their software. And I think the younger version of me was like trying to find that. And so that's another big shift where now for me, it's like, all right, this is a career. That's all it is. It enables me to then pursue things in life that I am passionate about, like traveling or building communities or spending time with my friends or family or cooking or whatever it might be. And so I've really started thinking about like how can I set myself up in the future. And I think when COVID first hit, I somehow came across Bigger Pockets, and like I think like a lot of people do when they learn about, you read like Rich Dad Poor Dad or you start listening to podcasts, you're like, oh my God, like you get so wrapped up in it. And
Yeah.
so for a good year, I was listening to so many podcasts about real estate investing and definitely analysis paralysis. I would say even 2 years ago, I had the money where I could buy. I was just so scared, so timid, didn't know where to start. You want it to be perfect. You want to find the perfect market, all this. And
Did you ask for help and for like anywhere in your circle whenever you were going through this analysis paralysis and feeling intimidated?
I think the problem is that in my circle, I don't really didn't have anyone that was doing anything like non-conventional, like real estate investing, right? They had their great software job, they put their money in a 401k, and they're just content with working until they're like 60 years old and retiring. And so it became apparent in the last 2 years that like, that's not what I want to do. Like, I don't want to work till I'm 65 and get my 401k and retirement money. Like, that sounds terrible to me. And yeah, that's probably why I didn't move though. I didn't have people around me doing that. I didn't have like some sort of it didn't feel attainable to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't know anyone that was doing it in my direct circles. I was just listening to these random people on podcasts, which helps a little, but it wasn't like I could talk to them or I didn't have a friend or someone in that space. And so I think that
Was it
was a challenge for
was this
me.
the first time you found yourself in a situation like this
Like what?
where a goal you had was something you couldn't reach out to your social circle for?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it was yeah, it feels so intimidating when you're trying to get into real estate. Like Or at least for me, I don't know how you felt before you bought.
I mean, something that like I agree, but I think a lot of people would be equally intimidated by your ability to move easily or go to new countries by yourself, right? So, what was it about real estate that was more like scary or uncertain than all of the other uncertain situations you had found yourself in before?
That's a good point, and I'm not quite sure what was different.
You think it
I
could
mean,
have
I,
been each too? Like,
I mean, what I knew that I wouldn't be able to afford investing locally because things are just so incredibly expensive.
right.
And I think maybe part of the reason was I knew I wanted to invest out of state, which sounded intimidating because it's like you're trying to manage it from afar. You don't know any, like you have to build a team. And so I analyzed markets. I talked to people in different markets, and I just like never ended up making any moves. And that started frustrating me because I mean, you've heard a lot of my stories. Like I've historically in my life, I've taken action, right? Like I want to go to Germany. I've moved, and for some reason that I can't explain, I was just getting stuck on this.
Mhm.
And I think what really changed my mindset. So last January, so I got laid off from my job. We got acquired, and they made big rounds of layoffs. And so that was the first time in my life that I'd been let go from a job. And even though I didn't love the job, and it's still pretty jarring where you're like, it's like this girlfriend that you planned to break up with, she broke up with you first. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I'm supposed to break up with you. You don't break up with me. And, and I think what was really jarring was like the fact that I'm so dependent on this W-2 job, on this employer. And I have good savings and I got a decent severance. So it wasn't like I was, broke or having to go crash on a couch, but it was super eye-opening for me in that I really hated the feeling of not being in control of my own destiny, in that I was reliant on someone else for income and kind of deciding the outcome of my life. And I really, really hated that feeling. And so I think that's what finally drove me to take action. I was like, I don't ever want to feel this way again. And that's what made me realize, like, you've been talking about real estate for 2 years. Like, you need to get your first property and just get in the game. And whatever that looks like, it doesn't have to be the most amazing deal, but like, you just need to get in the game. And then, like, I think things will start falling into place from there.
And this like realization was after the layoff.
Yeah. 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 The layoff was a big, even though, like I said, I didn't love the job. It wasn't like sad that I lost the job. It was more big picture of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm so dependent on someone else other than myself.
Yeah, I get that. Okay. So I know that you went on a trip, right? So you got laid off January of this year.
Yep.
Then is that what led you to take these trips to these 5 countries in Latin America?
Yeah. So I tried interviewing. The job market in tech was absolutely brutal this year because
Yeah.
there was a ton of layoffs at like very large companies.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. So you're fighting for one job with like sometimes there'd be 500 people that applied to one job. And in that time, I came to Denver for all of March to do a test run of could I see myself moving to Denver. It was then I connected. I did a few meetups and started looking at that market here, trying to understand what prices are, how much I could afford. I talked to a lender. So I decided after that trip I was going to move, but I wanted to wait until I had income. So I waited and then I realized like, shit, I'm not going to get a job anytime soon. So I ended up going on a trip to Oaxaca, Mexico,
Yeah.
and I volunteered at a co-living house there called Co 404. And so what it is, it's really geared. I explain it as like almost a mixture of like a hostel and like an Airbnb. So it's like all private rooms. It's super nice. But then there's a shared community space. There's a kitchen. And then as a volunteer, our jobs were to organize events. So we would do like a hike or you go to a market or whatever. And then once a week we would do a family dinner. And at that time of my life it was pretty challenging because I'm worried about money, I'm worried about my future. It's just a weird feeling being unemployed and like going through the interview process and constant rejection. And at that point in my life, like that community environment was exactly what I needed. I've met some incredible friends. Hopefully some of them are listening to this episode. I've met some really great friends that I know I'll be friends with for a super long time. And I think I really realized I love that idea of like building community. And it was just like a very eye-opening experience. I ended up traveling for another 3 months in Mexico and Buenos Aires and Peru. And then I got home in summer for a few weeks and I was like, it's time to move, man. Like
Gotta
you
go.
gotta, you're just sitting around waiting for something to happen. You gotta make the move and like hopefully stuff would start falling into place.
Yeah.
And so I think that was September. And sure enough, I drove. The very next day, I got a phone call with a job offer.
Nice.
So accepted the
Sure
job.
enough, like things did fall into place.
And I knew that. I'm a believer in that sort of stuff. And I felt like if I started making moves in the right direction, like it would start aligning. I
Hmm.
didn't think it would be that fast though. Like it's crazy how fast stuff has moved. 2 weeks later, I was under contract on a house hack here in Denver.
Yeah.
And I ended up closing on November 1st. So I've had it 2 months now.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing is based on my time in Oaxaca, I'm essentially trying to mimic a similar model. So I've turned the house into a co-living,
Hmm.
slightly different because it's longer term versus, someone traveling for like 2, 3 weeks. But I think there's a gap in kind of the rental market in a lot of places, especially here in Denver.
Yeah.
And I mean, co-living is becoming more and more popular. You hear it a lot in the investor circles. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people are attracted to it because you can make money, right? Like the returns can be similar to Airbnb, maybe a little less, but it's one of the few ways you can still cash flow in expensive markets,
Hmm.
which don't get me wrong, like that attracts me to it as well. Like it's a business after all. I'm trying to make money.
Yeah.
But I think where I'm different is like my vision is totally on the opposite end of the spectrum where I'm very passionate about building community here. Again, based on my time in Oaxaca as a volunteer and some of the things that we did, some of the incredible people that I met, shared dinners, things like that. I was like, I would love to build that sort of community here in my house in Denver. And
Hmm.
so that's what I'm doing. It's a 7 bedroom house, 3.5 bath, giant. And I'm really trying to focus and get people that are I'm trying to find the right balance, right? Like I don't want it to be we're singing Kumbaya and like we're doing everything together, but I want people that are open-minded to this idea of community living, right? They're open-minded to they don't want to just always go straight to their room and just isolate in their room. They hang out in the living room, they have a dinner together, they go on a hike together. And so I'm trying to foster a community where naturally that just like friendships start forming and I'm trying to be hands off. Like I want to be involved, but I'm not going to live here forever. And so I really want to make the environment where that's conducive to those sort of kind of relationships.
Hmm.
And so that's how I'm viewing kind of my investing journey is like I want to have these co-living. I'm trying to build a brand around this and have multiple houses. And I want them to feel very at home, communal. People talk. You don't just go straight to your room.
Hmm.
Granted, there's times where we all need our alone
Lunch.
time, right? That's natural. But I really want it to be a safe space where people talk, they share a meal together, whatever that looks like. And so I'm super passionate about that. Like I get really excited about that. And yeah, I have one guy in. I have two more moving in next week, and yeah, it's exciting. It's hard to try to build that community in the early stages, but it's also super exciting of what it could look like.
No, I think so. I'd like to say that you were kind enough to show me your property. What was that, yesterday? 2 days ago? 2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago.
Yeah. And I love it. I love it. Cause like hearing 7 bedrooms sounds a little scary, but it's such a large house and the rooms are so spread out and you really have done a great job of like making it just like such a livable, comfortable space. Like I'm pretty sure all of your tenants will be grateful and lucky to live there, especially with the environment that you're trying to create. So that's super exciting. And so what's the name of your brand?
It's not like patented yet. I don't have the domain. So, but it is, I'm calling it Code 303. So, it's kind of an ode to Code 44 in Oaxaca, not stealing their idea, but it's, 303 for those of you that don't know is the area code here in Denver. And again, still kind of that idea of community living. So that yeah, and that's the exciting part. I'm looking more around kind of building that brand in the next month or two. Been focused on getting the house ready and getting people in there.
Yeah, I
But that's kind of the next
you
part.
an action guy even before you telling me your whole story because like you've only had this house for a few weeks really and everything is so far along. There are labels throughout the kitchen, like really good, what's it called? Like templates for like how people should live in his house. And I think you're doing an amazing job and it's super exciting to see it. But I'm sorry, I think I cut you off.
No, 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 and I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, I think we've been talking about chapters, and this is I just moved 3 months ago. I packed up and said goodbye to all my friends and family, which is not easy, but I had never been to Denver. I have no idea why I chose Denver. It just, I get these feelings and it felt like something was calling to me in Denver, that there was something here for me. And yeah, I'm hoping that through this community, that others that are coming can have that calling and find a warm kind of fuzzy feeling in my homes. I have one now, but I aim to have many of these in the next few years. So that's what I'm focused on is I want to be financially independent. My goal is by 2030, so 5 years through real estate. And I find myself I'm working my software job in the day and I'm thinking about building my own business. And it's clear to me that that's where my passion is on the real estate side and the community building side. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what's it gonna look like in even a year or two. I think it could be something that's great. And so I'm super excited for this next chapter.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure before 2025 is over, you'll be well on your way to your next paragraph, maybe in your chapter. All right, Eric. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I'd love to have you on another episode in the future, and we can delve more into this newest chapter of Eric Lafon's life.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, I look forward to seeing both of our chapters. You got a lot going on as well, and so looking forward to seeing what we both build.
All right. Well, until next time, thank you guys for tuning in.